Welcome to my channel. I spent the first video showing you a montage of my house that I sold, which I was really sad about. And the second half I ended up telling you a lot about Martin Becker, my husband, who died. Actually, he died in the house, but I told you a lot of backstory about that. And also the second episode, I told you a lot about ghost stories and psychic events in my life. The reason I told you those things in preparation for telling you about the haunted house that I sold is that I was kind of surprised that when Martin died, I never saw his ghost. I know it sounds weird, but I'd seen so many ghosts that when he died, I thought for sure I'd see his ghost, and it was just like silence. I never heard anything from him for the 9 years I was married to the second husband I had. We had so many other ghosts haunting our house that, not really so many ghosts, but so many events that obviously our house was haunted that I thought definitely the dead can come visit. So I think I'll tell you the reasons why I think Martin didn't haunt our house. When he was sick, he was diagnosed with cancer. He was already in a lot of pain, so they gave him morphine right away. And it made him sort of not Martin anymore. 6-7 months of cancer, and basically he was on morphine the entire time. And he'd hallucinate. One time we took the kids to the movies and he was driving, and I didn't know that people on morphine shouldn't drive. I thought he was still Martin, you know, and I still treated him as a man and let him be in charge because I respected him and I wanted him to feel autonomy and satisfaction in his life as much as possible, especially because it was going to be so short. And we took them to see Garfield, which I'll never watch that movie. I'll never. First of all, I don't like the voiceover, but second of all, this event happened when we were at the movie theater that made me not want to go back to that movie or remember it ever again, which is we went and sat in the movie theater and Martin said, "There's a guy with a gun over there." And here we have like a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, and actually they were 3 and 5 at that time. And let me preface this by saying, despite the fact that the Twin Tower attack had happened, there were no events of people shooting people in theaters at that time. That had never happened. So, at least to my knowledge, I really don't think it ever happened yet. Which makes me wonder if Martin had a premonition of future events or something. But there were no shootings in a theater. It was unheard of for someone to be in a movie theater with a gun. And there was no security around movie theaters, especially in our neighborhood. So for him to say a guy with a gun was like, are you kidding me? But I said, where? Which guy? You know? And he said, don't look, but it's that guy over there. He's got a gun. And I looked and I could not see a gun, but I believed him. So I said, let's go. So we got out of the theater, walked out, and I was so worried about the other people in there. I told the manager, there's a guy with a gun. There's a guy with a gun in the movie theater. And the guy just looked at me strange. And I thought, why aren't they doing anything, you know? And then I said, well, actually, my husband's on morphine, so I guess it is possible it's not real. And then we left. We drove home. And we drove home on the 2 freeway going south because we were up in La Cañada. And Martin said, I said, honey, I don't think that was, are you sure? Maybe that wasn't really real. And I'm worried the manager never did anything. And Martin said, oh, they called the police. Look, there they come. And he said, look, there they are. They're coming up the road. See their sirens? See their lights? And I'm looking across the median of the freeway, and there's just cars going by. And I'm thinking, I really didn't think it was strange still. I just thought, why can't I see them? Where are they? And then we got home, and Martin laid in his bed, which was where he spent most of his time because his back hurt and all his pills were there. and we turned on the TV because that's what he did when he was in bed. And some random show was on, like an infomercial or something, and he was staring at it, and he said, "Look, there's the helicopters, and I'm like thinking, how can he see helicopters when he's looking at the TV? And then he said, "No, on TV, look, they're all coming to the theater to make sure everybody's okay, you know." And I looked at the TV, and it was just an infomercial, and then it finally clicked. Okay, he's hallucinating. This isn't real. I don't know what's going on. And then I looked up morphine, and it turned out it was just a hallucination. So then I didn't really take anything he said that seriously after that. But it kind of numbed him. Morphine numbed him. It made him not himself. And he couldn't taste things, you know. We went like in the last few days of his life, we went to a restaurant, and the poor waitress, because he was kind of yellowed skin with purple blotches. It's gross to even describe, but we tried to treat him like he was normal. I probably should have put makeup on him. But the waitress was waiting on us, and, you know, he wanted to go to a restaurant, and who were we to say no? You know, it was hardly possible to get him in the car, but we went, and he had his last meal in the restaurant, and then he died just like a few days later. Basically, there was the fact that he was drugged, that makes me think he was numbed to reality. He was in hospice, and he was hooked up to this thing where he could push a button and it would inject more morphine into his port, and he'd have more pain relief. And okay, this is a weird part. I have a whole nother series to do about my second husband, who was our family friend at the time. It was Martin's best friend, this gruesome guy that I'll call Gross or Gruesome, or I'll never say his name. But he was with Martin when he died, and I wasn't. There was a whole series of events. I didn't know this when Martin was dying. I didn't know there was anything wrong with this guy. I thought he was like the best friend we ever had. So this guy was taking care of Martin a lot of the time. Well, the nurse told us that Martin was close to dying, and that to ease the transition, that we could like give him a few extra clicks on the morphine, and he'd pass more quickly. But it was in Martin's hands to do it, not ours, you know, and I would never do that. I don't know if I would do that. I was not in the position to do that because I was injured and in a hospital bed downstairs. And I have to do a series about this later, because looking back after I left my ex-husband, I realized that the way I was injured, I just woke up one day with this stroke-like event where I had a carotid artery dissection and I almost died. But when I'm looking back on it, I realized the night before he gave me a pill to help me sleep. And I'm thinking some strange things could have happened, where it could have actually been at his hands that I was injured. Because the whole thing was him trying to get our money. But I was downstairs in a hospital bed, and Martin was upstairs in his hospital bed at this point. We had 2 hospital beds, and was taking care of everybody. And we had nurses coming in, taking care of us, but dismissed them. The hospice nurses would still come. No one would come at night. This is why was taking care of us, because the hospice would refuse to send someone at night. I don't know if it was because Martin was a man. I was in the hospital on the phone trying to call around to different agencies to find someone who would come care for Martin at night so he could get out of the hospital and back home and get hospice care and die in his own bed. And I was unsuccessful. No one would work at night back then. I couldn't find anyone. I was asking my nurses for help. I was supposed to stay calm because I had this carotid artery dissection, and any kind of high blood pressure or it would just like explode and I would have a stroke, you know. So they were like, you have to stay calm. And I was so upset about this, and I was trying so hard to get it so that Martin could die in his own home, because he was freaking out. He was in a hospital. I was on the phone to him, took him to a different hospital far away. And when I was on the phone with him, he was telling me how the nurses at the hospital he was at were trying to kill him, but he was on morphine, he was hallucinating, and I just wanted him to have a peaceful transition, you know. I didn't want to prevent him dying. I knew it was inevitable, but I wanted him to be comforted in his last moments. So, said he could take care of Martin, and he said he would only do it if I agreed to marry him, because at this point he was already, it sounds so weird, but Martin had been sick for 7 months and had been befriending me and telling me he loved me and, you know, telling me he'd be there for me and the kids and telling me Martin wanted that. And I don't know, I was kind of like brainwashed by this point. I mean, I took the pill he gave me. So I pretty much did whatever he said. So he said he would take care of us, but only if I agreed to marry him, and we would wait a respectable time after Martin died. But he was trying to get my money. But I was near death, trying to take care of my husband, and I thought it was the right thing to do for my kids, so I agreed. I made a commitment. And I used to be the type of person that thought if I made a commitment, I had to stick to it too. So even if I had come to my senses before I married, oh crap, I said his name, I'm gonna go back and bleep it. But I kept my word, you know, because I promised, because he supposedly sacrificed his time for us and everything. Well, yeah, that's true. I don't know, there's two sides to every story. I don't feel well telling this, because I think he was the one who injured me. I think he tried to kill me or injure me to make me dependent on him because he was losing control over the situation. I kept telling him, no, I don't need your help. I'll handle the money, you know, because he kept trying to handle the money and trying to find out what assets Martin had and trying to interject himself into the situation. I was scared of Martin's partner because Martin's partner was taking credit for all of Martin's inventions, and I thought he was trying to take over the company and not give us any money, and I was afraid of him. I asked him for the information about the life insurance, and the partner sent me something that said it was only $500,000 and it was supposed to be a $2 million policy, and it was actually a lie. I found out later that the policy was not $500,000. It was a piece of paper that was bullshit that they had made up, or some old policy. So I was scared, so I agreed to marry. So I'm thinking the other thing that makes it unlikely for Martin to have haunted us is I was already married to like immediately after his death, and Grant was this sort of big personality, controlling, and didn't want any memories of Martin in the house. Got rid of all the pictures, got rid of all the things that were like memories of Martin. So this is way too long. I'm going to end it here and just continue it later. And also, I'm exhausted telling this. There's so much more to tell. But I believe the reason Martin didn't haunt our house is he was drugged when he died. I don't know what his feelings were about my marriage to Grant. I thought it's what he wanted. Grant told me that. But in retrospect, I think he just made that up. And the worst thing was, I wasn't with Martin when he died because Grant told me, Martin doesn't want you to see him like this. He wants to die in peace. Don't go up there. And I was like, I couldn't get up the stairs without assistance at that point, but I was going to do it. And I started getting out of my hospital bed, and actually pushed me back down and said, you're not going up there. And I kind of wish that I could have been with Martin in his final moments, you know? And that didn't happen.